As a scientist in computer vision fields, I must talk here about a really interesting connection. How our biological perception influences not just vision, but also hearing, and how both can be manipulated to grab attention. In the first few hundred milliseconds of seeing an image, our brain operates on instinctive, primal mechanisms. Our eyes don't just look at the image, they scan it rapidly with erratic movements, a process often called glimpsing. And what do they lock onto first? Bright areas, high contrast, human faces, body outlines and eyes. Essentially, we are wired to look for danger and social interaction before anything else. That's why marketing materials are always bright, high contrasty and over-sharpened. They are engineered to win that first split-second battle for attention. The same goes for TV showrooms, where all the displays are set to ridiculously high saturation and sharpness to make the screens seem more impressive. It's not about aesthetics or accuracy, it's about grabbing eyeballs. Even with the rise of cinematic film-like visuals in content creation, the reality is that brighter, contrast-heavy images will always stand out more at a glance. What's really fascinating is that this exact same phenomenon exists in audio. Our hearing system is just as easy to trick as our vision. If you play the same piece of music on cheap speakers, but turn the volume up slightly compared to high-end speakers, most non-audio professionals will perceive the louder system as better. That's because louder sound feels richer, clearer and more engaging, even if the actual sound quality is much worse. This led to the infamous loudness war in music production. Music producers started using heavy compression to make songs sound louder, because in a side-by-side comparison, a louder track will always seem punchier and more exciting to an untrained ear. But this comes at a huge cost. It kills dynamic range. The subtle highs and lows, the depth of the soundstage, it all gets squashed. The song loses nuance, but since loudness grabs attention, it still wins in mass market appeal. It's the same story across different mediums, whether it's overly bright TV screens, overly compressed music, or oversaturated Instagram photos. Human perception is predictable and hackable, and industries have built entire strategies around exploiting those instincts. All of these first contact mechanisms might help grab attention, but they fade away once the viewer settles into longer experience. In film, when we are talking about hours of immersion, it's not about flashy visuals anymore. It's about pulling the viewer into the story and keeping them there. That's where subtleties of image quality come into play. A single static frame from a movie might not seem like a big deal, but the overall visual language builds up over time, shaping the viewer's perception. The goal isn't just to make a technically perfect image, it's to create something that feels right within the context of the story. For example, when we see a dark room on screen, we don't just need to show that it's dark, we need to make the viewer feel the darkness. And it's not about just underexposing the shot, but about carefully controlling the light and shadows so the viewer's brain fills in the missing details. Darkness isn't just an absence of light, it's an invitation for the mind to wander. That's especially powerful in suspense and horror. If you show too much of the danger up front, the audience has nothing to fear anymore. But if you hide details in the shadows, obscure parts of the frame, or create ambiguity, the viewer's mind starts working overtime to fill in the gaps. That anticipation, that primal fear of the unknown, is what keeps them on edge. It's the same reason low-key lighting is so effective. It activates the viewer's brain by leaving just enough information for them to start imagining the rest. And once the brain is actively engaged, that's when immersion happens. It's not just about watching a scene, it's about experiencing it. So exposure and post-production are not just about numbers, they are about perception. It's not just a technical process, it's about how an image feels to the viewer. Color, contrast and brightness don't exist in a vacuum. Different colors at different intensities create different perceived contrast. contrasts. A bright red on a dark background will pop up differently than a bright blue under the same conditions. And then you have a wild card, the viewing environment. The same image will look different depending on where it's viewed. A movie in a dark black-walled theater feels dramatically different than watching it in a bright living room with white walls. Our brain constantly adapts, shifting its perception of brightness and contrast. Alright, I will wrap it here. Make sure to stay subscribed or sign up for my newsletter. Links are in the description. See you in the next video.